Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second half of episode 11 of the Latent Force Prepared Defensive Action podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about crime trends and what policing looks like in the next 5 years. So stick around.
Three, two, one.
This is the Latent Force Prepared Defensive Action podcast. We believe there's no defensive situation so bad that your lack of training can't make it worse. We're on a mission to cut the crap in the firearms industry and bring you topics and discussions that are designed to make you a more informed and effective gunfighter. If it has to do with alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and everything else, we're going to talk about it. Guys, gals, and submarine racers, here are your hosts, Jay Eisenecke and Mike Garza. All right, welcome everybody to this episode of the Latent Force Prepared Defensive Action podcast. In this episode, we are going to talk about your personal defense plan and how current crime trends impact your defense plan. And then we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the trends in law enforcement and where we're going to see law enforcement in the next 5 years or so. And you say, well, Jay, why is that important to my personal defense? Well, if we think about the defund the police movement, the civil unrest, the animosity towards law enforcement, and the attempts to roll back qualified immunity, I think you can see is that these things start to impact law enforcement decisions they make, and it really is impacting budgets and the number of cops on the street. So that definitely plays a role in your personal defense plan. So that's the reason we bring it up, and I think it'd be a good topic to talk about. And you'll notice that Mike is still on vacation. He's gone for a couple of weeks, so we have an empty seat. So I've invited back our favorite guest host, and that is Deputy Rich. Rich, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Jay, and thank you for the invitation back. I do enjoy very much the podcast and participating.
Hey, well, we're glad to have you. And hey, while I've got you here, you know the Olympics are coming up, right?
They are. I think they
Yes.
might even be in progress right now.
Is that right? Well, you know, I got some good news from a few of my friends that have been training and practicing to make the Olympic team this year in Tokyo. And I'd like to give a quick congratulations out to Jake, Penelope, Rodrigo, Philip, and Zachary, who are proud new members of the U.S. Olympic underwater soap carving team. So we look forward to seeing them in a pool on the Olympic broadcast this year.
That sounds like an interesting event, and I hope it's not liquid soap they're using.
Yeah, that is going to be tough with liquid soap. So I think it's going to be the bar soap, but I'm not like an official. I don't know exactly what the rules are, but I suppose it could be in a little bottle where you pump it out.
Well, they sure will be clean when they get out of the pool.
Yes, and it seems like it would be much more fun if it was, and more challenging if it was. Maybe that's like amateur is the bar of soap, like, you know, Irish Spring, and then you get the guys that are like the super professionals. The elite are the ones that can carve the dial in the bottle.
There you go.
Might be it. Well, anyways, they're big fans of our show, so we like to make sure to, give a shout out to those 5 fans that we have. So another interesting story here. Now, Rich, what's the weirdest thing that you've probably seen fly into somebody's windshield over your 31 years in law enforcement?
Well, I've seen vacuums, ladders, pipes, of course, deer, cow. Nothing too weird.
Nothing too weird. All right. Well, this story, and it's been out since apparently April of this year. So probably everybody that listens to the shows has probably already seen this story because they probably peruse the same stuff that I do. This comes out from Florida. A Florida woman survives being hit by a flying turtle.
Wow.
Yes.
I have not heard of that before.
You've not heard of one. Oh, well, this happened in Daytona Beach, Florida, back in April. And, like we were talking about, it's not unusual to see rocks fly up and boards and stuff like that, and the things that you meant to fly through the window. But a turtle, that seems a little strange to me. I know they got them in Florida, but it still seems weird. So it turns out that a 71-year-old woman riding with her daughter on Florida's Interstate 95 suffered a gashed forehead Wednesday when a turtle smashed through the windshield of their car, striking her, the Daytona Beach News Journal reports. So I imagine that had to be a pretty tough day out there on the highways. Now, it turns out they must have closed down all the highways and had to send out somebody to investigate what happened out there on Interstate 95 in Florida, that they had to shut everything down and investigate. So the daughter pulled over and got help from another passerby, according to the 911 recording, and both were obviously very surprised with what they found. Now, the gash drew a lot of blood, but the woman was not seriously hurt. And they, like I said, they sent out investigators, closed it down. I don't think they sent out a helicopter, but there was paramedics and fire and multiple units investigating for hours on end out there on the 95 highway in Florida. And they did determine what the cause of the turtle car collision was. And apparently from the investigation, they determined that the turtle was likely crossing the interstate to get to the other side here, and got knocked into the air by another vehicle. So it picked up the turtle and just threw it across the interstate and ran into this lady's window. Now, I know there's a bunch of people over there that are just gasping, sitting on the edge of their seat, wondering, is the turtle okay? So I'm happy to report that the turtle, on the other hand, had the best luck of anything. It just had a few scratches on its shell and was released back into the nearby woods, according to the Port Orange police officer, Andre Fleming. There you go. So now we know.
It sounds like a crime. Tortoise crime, that is.
Yes. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Well, so I seem to remember that you have a desert tortoise. Is that right?
I do. He's about 9 years old, and we're expecting him to live about another 71.
Oh, okay. So you've willed him to somebody.
My son has to take care of him.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem with those things. Well, does he have any scratches on his shell?
No, he actually has a pretty perfect shell.
Okay, I just thought perhaps he was the perpetrator of the. I want to find another word that starts with P, so I can't do it. Okay,
yeah, no.
He was the perfect perpetrator of the. Whatever. Anyways, okay. So the idea behind this today, Rich, is we wanted to talk about crime trends. And I think it's important because if a person is developing their personal defense plan and they're going to design it and think about it around what some of the realities are where they live, maybe on what crime is happening, and so they can, kind of develop a way to either avoid, remove, or defend themselves against those type of crimes. So I thought it would be a good thing to bring up some of the trends of what's happening with there so people can kind of identify. And I think that what we're going to find in this conversation on this topic is that there's going to be a bunch of surprises. I think people are going to think things are one way and they're really another. So, and then after this, since we'll rely on your expertise, I'd like to talk about some of the and discuss some of the new things that police departments are going to have to be facing going in the next few years. Obviously, with early retirements, and recruiting down and budget restraints, the law enforcement agencies are going to be looking for technology probably to be their force multiplier, because they aren't going to be able to do it with just bodies on the street. I think I shouldn't say bodies on the street. That sounds bad. Boots on the ground, feet in the street. How about that?
That sounds much better.
Yeah.
not as threatening.
God Dang. Yeah, there are bodies on the street. They're everywhere.
But the reality of it is things are not the best out there. I know the numbers may say and show one thing, but you've got to understand what's behind those numbers. And then people would realize that numbers are just numbers. The reality of it is things are not getting better.
Well, here's what I did, and so you know that we just aren't making up numbers and statistics. Because I know I just told you about the turtle that flew through the window. I didn't make that up, by the way. It actually did happen. So I want to make sure I clear the air there, because I don't want people to think I'm out here making up news stories. Annual FBI UCR report, which is the Unified Crime Reporting report that the FBI puts out. We rely on that heavily. You'll find a bunch of these links to any of these sites on our website. So you can go and look this stuff up for yourself. You can drill down into these charts and graphs and numbers to your heart's content. The other one is the Bureau of Justice Statistics, who also puts out a report annually. And then they also do, I want to say, either between the FBI and the BJIS, I think they do it maybe a 5-year report, so they get a little bit better trend. So that's where you can get it. You can get that information there, and that's where we're kind of drawing from on this episode today. So this stuff is going to be coming from 2020, so it'll kind of give you an idea. That's probably about as recent as we're going to get. What I did find interesting, though, Rich, is that Gallup has been doing surveys since 1993. And up until now, they have done 24 surveys. And of those 24 surveys, 20 of them have shown that at least 60% of adults believe crime is higher nationwide than the year before. Okay.
I tend to believe that.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. I'm going to give you the next one. Now, since 1993, all of the Gallup polls that they've conducted have shown that no more than half have ever said crime is up in their area compared to the year before. So people's perspective of where they're at versus the nation are much different.
I think some people live in disbelief and they don't really want to admit what surrounds them.
Okay. To me, I might say the opposite. No, not the opposite to that, but another perspective might be that people's perspective of what's happening nationally is skewed by all the constant barrage of negativity that comes through news and social media. And so it seems like it's happening more often. I mean, if you think about it, let's say if there's 50 crimes in a day back 25 years ago or 20 years ago, you might only hear about what happened in your town and maybe what happened in your state or maybe what happened in a neighboring state. But now you can hear, 50 reports of the same thing in every state across the country in a moment's notice. And so I think it seems like people perceive that it's more than maybe it is. So,
absolutely. With all the media outlets, you get it instantaneously,
sure.
If not while in progress.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to just share some numbers here so we can kind of get an idea of baseline and when we start talking about what the rest of this stuff is here. So 11.6 million criminal incidents in 1999, 8.4 million criminal incidents in 2018. So that is a 26.4% decline in crime incidents in that span. Another interesting number that goes in the same time frame, the population in the country increased by 50 million or by 20% during that same period of time. So we got more people and less reported crime. What say you?
And I think that's the key word, reported crime. I think you have many people out there. And I know in my 31-year career, spending most of it on the road, I have run into people in a fairly decent area of the Southwest United States. And depending on crime, they didn't want to be a victim. They didn't want to report it. They just wanted us to be aware of it, but they wanted no official report taken.
Okay. And that is true, is that's one of the things, and we'll get into that, is that people just don't report it. They either think it isn't worthy of a report, or, they just don't want to get in a mess of some kind with it. So here's an interesting thing that I think is another important number to know, is that in 2020, more than 23 million guns were purchased, which is a 60% increase over the 14 million firearms that were purchased in 2019. 60% increase. That's crazy. So we have increased guns purchased and people owning them. We have an increase in population, yet the incidence has decreased by 20 some percent.
Well, I hope those people that are purchasing those guns take that opportunity to train themselves and not be a victim with their own gun.
Sure. And you bring it up, that's a great point, is we are actually doing a 4-part series, starting after right after this one is a 4-part series of new gun owners, focused on new gun owners, talking about the things that are important for new gun owners to know about safety and about training and about how their guns work, and to also talk about some things that they have to consider as gun owners, and then really to help them, because I think that unfortunately at times the 2A community is not super inviting and accepting of new people. And so, I think it's important that they find a place to get good information to, make decisions and right decisions and learn something and have the right questions to ask when they're going to purchase a gun, and when they're storing a gun, so they don't put themselves at risk or their family at risk.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure the 23 million, there is a repetitive gun owner in there, but I'm sure there's a lot of new folks out there. And yeah, there's a lot to consider. There's a lot to know. There's a lot to learn about, because it's a responsibility owning a firearm.
And the latest report from the National Shooting Sports Foundation says that 46% of all the guns purchased are first-time gun owners. So that's a lot.
Very large percentage, absolutely.
Yep, for sure. So I have a question for you, Rich. What city or state do you think of when you think of high violent crime?
What state or city? Well, I think in the Southwest, I think there's 2 states that stand out that have pretty high in category. I think overall for crime is probably Nevada.
Okay.
As number 1 in crime. And one of the states the most dangerous to live in, I say, might be Arizona.
Okay. All right. And
I don't know where they rank, but on some studies I've done and research, I'm going to say they're 2 of the top states.
Okay. All right. Well, keep that everybody in the back of your mind. What city do you think of when you think of violent crime?
Do I think of, or do I know factually by one thing or another?
Either way.
What I think of, probably Los Angeles is a violent crime, and
okay.
maybe Chicago.
Okay. Because to me, the one that always comes up and that we're always seeing is, 50 people got shot and killed over the holiday weekend in Chicago. And so to me, it's Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. It's always talking about that. And so that's what I think of. And so I just wanted everybody to kind of put in their mind what they're thinking of a state or a city of where they think high violent crime is, because as we're going to go through this, we're going to see how many of those things match up with what both you and our listeners are thinking. So here is some information on violent crimes, and over the same period of time, as we've been talking about, the same period of time in 2020, in this report, is murder and intentional manslaughter is down by 12.3% over the same time period, this long period of time. Aggravated assault is down 26.2%. burglary is down 51.2%.
I know you're not talking about Portland or Seattle.
Well, I assume that they were in the report when they started the report in 2020. I don't know. So when they would have published it and how much of the numbers during the COVID time would have fallen into this report, it's hard to say. It could be a small number. Larceny/theft is down 37.5%. Motor vehicle theft is down 45.8%. And one of the interesting things that does show up in this report is that, and I didn't know this, that in 2013, the FBI changed. They used to, prior to 2013, they used to record rape was only forcible with a woman. And so in 2013, they changed it to include anyone. So since 2013, rape has gone up 20%. So, but if you take all of it and blend it all together, it's only down since 1999, it's only down 5.8%. So it says to me is that, one of the things to be concerned about is that when we, not to throw fear out there, but as far as when you're looking at these things where it's trending, where the things have not had a steady decline in the numbers and reportings here, is that it's been rape, which is where, the females and the women that are out trying to have that defensive plan and protect themselves, they're the ones that are definitely the ones that should be. And those are the ones that we should be getting, wrapping our arms around in the 2A community to encourage them to, be more proficient with their gun and have a personal defense plan in place and practice it on a regular basis.
Are those statistics just across the country or any particular area?
That is the FBI's report across the country.
Wow.
Yes. Since 1999. And the thing is, there's multiple reports out there that show the trend is down across the board. And again, that's what is shocking is in that time frame, numbers are actually going down. The 90s were the worst, were the highest numbers were in the 90s.
I know the population is growing and I have no factual basis on things, but I'm going to attribute that going down statistics to the fact that the numbers are up. There are a lot of people that are not wanting to report for one reason or another. But I'll tell you, being out there on the streets and having seen things, and of course, if we can believe the news that's out there, I just don't know how numbers are going down when it appears that there's so much crime going on out there. Right.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is I just share this information and use it on how you want. So here would be an example of crime rates on how crime rates are reported is that they usually will do it in a number, a quantity per 100,000 people. So if you get a number of 1,000 incident occurrences per 100,000 people, that would be only 1% of the population. So that's kind of how that number. So when we're going through all these numbers, just think about how that turns into population percentages. So here's what I thought was pretty interesting is that when we look at communities and the size of community, what size city do you think has the most crime?
So you're asking.
Well, let me set it up this way. There's 4 different categories of cities that are out there. They have, let me make sure I got my numbers right. They have a tier 1 city, which is more than 1 million population. They have a tier 2 city, which is 300,000 to 1 million. Then they have a tier 3, which is 100,000 to 300,000. And then a tier 4, which is 25,000 to 100,000. So where do you think the majority of crime happens in those 4 sizes of cities?
I'm going to go with the tier 4.
So the largest ones or the smallest ones?
The smallest ones.
Okay. All right. Well, here's where we got is the ones communities that are less than 25,000 has the lowest crime rate. Which, that's good. So small town communities, right? They're watching, they've got neighborhoods, they got neighbors, everybody's looking out. So violent crime, which includes murder, robbery, aggravated assault, is only 278 occurrences per 100,000 people. That's pretty low. Property crime, which is burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, it's only 2,294 per 100,000. So 2.3% roughly of the population is a victim of property crimes. If you go to, so here's the interesting thing. It's actually not the tier 4. It is the tier 2 communities. 300,000 to 1 million has the highest crime rates. So not the big cities and not the small cities, but the ones right in the middle. So that's a big swath of America. So that's something to think of. Violent crimes is 1,579 per 100,000. So that's 1.6% of the population is a victim of a violent crime. 7,360 per 100,000 or 7.4% are victims of a property crime in those cities. So that's, what that tells us though, is that violent crime is much less common than property crimes. And so if we're putting together defensive things and how we're putting strategies together, is we really have to be, not that violent crime and it isn't important, but you're far more likely to be a victim of some sort of property crime than you are of a violent crime.
Well, for the record, I was taking a stab in the dark, and on the raw question there, I'm thinking, well, out of boredom, small town, not much to do, create your own excitement.
Yeah, no, that logic is solid. I would think that too. You're bored. You got nothing else to do. I bet you drug use is probably higher in those smaller cities, which then you would think, well, that would translate into property crimes, the petty crimes, right?
Yeah, that's the way I was thinking. But again, it was just a gamble.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's why you don't live in Las Vegas, right?
That's it.
All right. So one of the, we've talked about these before, but I just want to make sure in real quick is what assault is, assault and battery, and Rich, you can correct me at any time, but basically an assault is an unintentional act that causes another person to fear physical harm. So somebody, that's basically assault.
Correct.
Assault and battery, which they usually, I think that's really just assault and battery has kind of come synonymous. They're pretty much the same thing, but it used to be separate. But battery was considered a completed assault. So that's kind of what an assault turned into, was a battery. But now they're the same thing. So it's actually crimes of actual physical violence is what a assault and battery would be.
Yeah. Some states use variants in the actual terminology. I think in the southwestern United States, I think just the assault. I don't think there's any battery term in there of anything.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And like I said, it seems like most people are going away and they're the same thing now anyways. But okay, the next one would be aggravated assault. And the only reason I bring these up is because they're in the numbers so we understand what violent crimes are versus property crimes. And it's aggravated assault, which is essentially it turns into an aggravating factor. So if you're committing an assault, but you use a weapon, or there's a potential for create more serious intent, that would turn into an aggravated assault.
Absolutely correct.
So if you were, say, a woman was walking down the street and a guy uses a gun or a knife, drags her behind a building and attempts to sexually assault her, that would be an aggravated assault, even though she may get away.
Correct. Actually, there's multiple crimes involved there. You can have kidnapping, threatening, intimidating. If she's injured, there's another crime there. But the use of the weapon is your aggravated assault.
Okay, good. So I'm so far 4 for 4. All right, property crime has obviously the number that we're showing is property crime has actually declined faster than violent crime, which I find is to be pretty interesting. So when we look at property crime, there's a couple of basic ones here. We all know what auto theft is, so we get it. Somebody stole your vehicle. Theft/larceny, and that's basically taking any kind of property without breaking into a structure. So if you left your wallet out on a table and somebody walked by and stole it, you didn't break in to do it. You just took their stuff. You separated them from their property. And then burglary would be doing the same thing, except you actually entered into a property. Did I get those right?
Yeah. Again, it's a variance in terms across the country. Some states, I think, generally more on the east use the term larceny. On the west, it's just theft.
I think larceny just sounds so much more fun.
It sounds serious.
It does. It's like, you larcenist. Instead of calling somebody a thief, you're a thief or you're a larcenist. I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah.
It just sounds cool.
Burglary. You brought up burglary. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, burglary is entering and remaining unlawful to commit a crime therein. So you can burglarize a place and not steal or damage or threaten, intimidate anyone.
Oh, so that wouldn't be, if you were in there unwanted, that wouldn't be, even though you didn't take anything, that wouldn't be a level of trespass?
Well, that'd be level trespass. Again, burglary itself is entering and remaining unlawfully to commit a crime therein.
Oh, okay. So if you were hiding out with the intent to commit a different crime without stealing or damaging something, then that would be burglary.
Correct. Running from the cops and you find an open door and you get in and hide, burglary.
There you go.
Besides trespassing.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right. So here's some other interesting things that has to do. This is across the country in the same, during the same time period. And these are great numbers for you, Rich. This is going to be right up your alley. I'm going to cover police clearing rates on violent crimes. So when it's reported, it's investigated, and it's prosecuted, the clearing rates of these violent crimes. What do you think the clearing rate of homicides is?
I'm going to go 20%.
Really? It is actually 61.4%.
Wow.
That's crazy, isn't it? Okay. What do you think it is for aggravated assault?
Well, that I'm going to go up in the 60s, maybe if not 75%.
Okay. It's actually 52.3%. Next is rape. What do you think the number is for rape?
I'm going to go with a low number, 40%.
Okay, 32.9%. And then robbery. What do you think it is for robbery?
50%.
Okay, 30.5. So go ahead.
This is why I don't live in Las Vegas and why I don't gamble.
Well, it's okay.
I'm very conservative.
Yeah, I guess. So here are the police clearing rates for property crime. So this is going to be a little different. What do you suppose it is? The clearing rate is for larceny and theft.
Go 80%.
80%?
Yeah, I'm going to go upwards of 80.
Okay. 18.4%.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. All right. So what do you think it is for burglaries?
Well, with the modern times and technology and video, I'm going to go upwards of 70.
Okay. It is 14.1%.
Wow.
Okay. So what do you think it is for auto theft?
This is why I only take $20 to Las Vegas. Once my 20's done, I'm done.
Right.
Let's go with 25%.
Okay, it's 13.8.
Okay, I'm getting closer.
You are. Yeah, you are. I feel like I'm on, like this is a game show or something like that. So the reason that I pointed that out was it is, we're talking is that you're far more likely to be a victim of a property crime than you are of a violent crime. It's more likely that they will solve the crime that is a violent crime, and far less likely that they will solve a property crime. So you're going to be victimized in a property crime and pretty much nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to get prosecuted or even caught in that thing. And it's going to, it's just done. You're victimized, take it or leave it.
I might agree there. Personal, the violent crime, I think a lot are done if you want to consider rape, aggravated assault, other heinous crimes, they're more spur of the moment, and the thought process isn't there to cover their steps, and evidence is left behind. Whereas a property crime, gloves are used. They do it under the cover of darkness. They often look for an open door, something that's already open, trying not to use forcible entry, which might leave some evidence behind, pry marks from a pry bar, footprint on a door kick, and so forth. So I could see some of that.
And I imagine, as you think about that video security systems and, Ring and the Nest and all those type of things, I got to imagine that, maybe that it attributes to why the amount of property crime is going down. Maybe people are getting smarter. They're making more, doors that are more resistant to being kicked in. Maybe people are actually listening to people's recommendations, like reinforcing their door jambs and actually closing and locking their doors instead of leaving them open. Maybe that's what's contributing to it. Because really those type of property crimes are more of a convenience thing versus, it's just like, oh, hey, the door's open, I'm going to go in and steal something.
Well, I know my surrounding area a couple of years ago, in like a 2-year period, the Ring doorbell solved 4 crimes, identifying the suspects. And as far as people securing themselves and we'll say hardening their residences, that definitely needs to be done. And the bad guy wants an easy hit. He doesn't want to spend time trying to get into a place. They're looking for the easy hit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The I don't know where somebody's going to come in and, with AK-47s and kick down your door and just run in, and that it's just the likelihood of that happening is so rare. I mean,
you mean
you would
those assault rifles?
Yeah. The black rifles, those things that are all scary.
Yeah, they're the assault rifles. Isn't that what they talk about out there?
Yes, it's them. It's their fault. It's their fault. I mean, you see it where they'll show a video where these people come in, guns blazing, they kick in the door and they attack the people in the house. And the thing is it turns out to be is that, they're involved somehow in,
oh yeah,
they're in their orbit, and it's not like that's not what happens. The vast majority of those is somebody knew somebody, or you wronged somebody. It's not that random act of violence like that.
No, those acts like that we hear about, yeah, there are some random ones, but I think the majority, it's a known individual, and something went wrong within that circle.
So here is, so I put these together for the top 3 states with the highest combined crime rate. Now that's going to be a combination of both property and violent crime. So I'm putting you on the spot here again, Rich. But I'm only asking you the top 3. So if you were to guess the top 3 states in America through 2020 with the highest combined crime rate, what would you throw out there?
Anchorage, Alaska. I'm reaching far.
Okay. Okay. Alaska.
Let's go with Los Angeles and Miami.
Okay. So you're going to go with Alaska, California, and Florida.
Correct.
The 3 states, because Los Angeles, I know it's a big city, but it's just a city.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that was your answer. Okay. All right. California. There it is. Well, surprising. Very good. You got 1 of the 3, and it was Alaska. So number 1 is New Mexico.
Wow.
Number two is Alaska, and number 3 is Louisiana.
Wow.
Now,
I would have never thought that.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. New Mexico has, it's a 4.3% victims of the population are victims of the combined crime in the state of New Mexico. It's 4.2% in Alaska and 3.8% in Louisiana. Pretty crazy. Wow. So
I've got to watch the over the road trips.
Exactly right. All right. So what states, top 3 states, have the highest violent crime?
I'm going to go Nevada, Arizona, New York.
Okay. Number 1, Alaska. Number 2, New Mexico. Number 3, Tennessee. Surprising. Tennessee. Yep. Yeah, that's crazy that is the highest violent crime. So now, what are the highest property crime states in America?
I'm going to go California, Texas, and I'm going to go with Florida again.
Okay. Throwing out a bunch of love to the Floridians down there.
Hey, my favorite state to visit, but I'm just looking at the mass.
Okay. Highest property crime is the state of New Mexico. Number 2, Alaska. And number 3 is Louisiana. Can you believe that? It's crazy.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing. So now I like to be fair to everybody. And so we talked about the highest. So now we're going to go back and I'm going to say, which one do you think has the lowest combined crime rate in the country? What 3 states?
Okay. Well, that I think is easy just based on, and that's my opinion, the nestled away location and I'm throwing in beauty of it, but I'm going to go with Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and maybe Connecticut.
Wow. Okay. You have the right region of the country. You just, if the game was to get as close to those states without being correct, you would have won the gold medal. So you're in the right area. It is New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine in that order, 50, 49, and 48.
Well, I know that area up there is beautiful. It's nestled away from the mainstream, and I haven't really heard of much in my readings of news and listening going on up that way.
Exactly, yeah. So the lowest violent crime is in Maine, and the lowest property crime is in New Hampshire. Interesting. Okay. So now we get into, and I'm bringing all this stuff up so we can have everybody with knowing where their state is. Hopefully they don't fall into this deal here. So my next one is, Rich, what 3 states have the highest increase in violent crime?
I'm going to put Phoenix as one of them.
State. So it's Arizona?
Oh, I'm sorry, Arizona.
Okay.
Let's say Arizona, Nevada, and let's go with Oregon.
Wow, you have like no love for Nevada. It's crazy. We're horrible over here, I guess.
I'm just trying to be straightforward and honest.
Yeah, and I'm not even trying to defend it, so that's all right. All right, number 1, South Dakota. They had, over that same period of time, a 118% increase in violent crime in South Dakota.
Wow, I'm blown away.
Yep, I was too, and it's crazy.
Have you been up to South Dakota?
I have been to South Dakota.
It's beautiful. It doesn't look like they have any crime.
Yeah. Number 2, Montana at a 47.5% increase. Now you think about all the people that are moving up into those areas from California, and you must be taking crime with them, I guess. All right. And number 3, tied for number 3, is North Dakota and Alaska at 39.8% increase in violent crime.
Wow. I'm blown away. Seriously. I would have never thought at least South Dakota or Montana in anything.
Now, North Dakota, I can kind of get that because of, the oil field and everything going on up there. And that makes sense to me, is that, they don't always, draw in the most desirable to come up there and work in those places, in those far, hidden away places.
Yeah, it's a working class.
Well, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it, but no. I mean, in North Dakota is a long ways from anything. And when it's good money, and people don't have options other places, that's where they're going to go. So highest increase in property crime. What do you think?
At the rate I'm going, I don't want to think. No one's going to want me as their partner in poker.
Exactly.
And what was the category again?
It was the highest increase in property crime.
Property crime. I'm going to have to go with, again, California, and don't want to pick on New York again, but New York and then Arizona.
Okay. Well, it is North Dakota, Montana, and South Dakota.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. All right. Now, go ahead.
Yeah. I quit. Count me out.
Okay. All right. So here's the next one. The highest decrease. Who had the largest decrease in violent crime? Top 3 states. And you're going to laugh at this one as soon as we get this, because you're going to, it's funny.
Let's go with Ohio, Iowa, and maybe Georgia.
Okay. Now, number 1, Florida. Down. That's what I'm saying. You're over here hating on Florida. Down 37.2%. Number 2 is Delaware, down 33.5%. And this one, I had to double check, triple check, quadruple check, because I wanted to call bullshit on this, but it's across the board. It's the truth. Number 3, New Jersey.
Wow.
Down 33.2%.
Wow.
So interesting.
Yeah. Well, I know Florida has a pretty good backing for their law enforcement. So they're given pretty much the green light to enforce laws. So I could see a lot going down there.
So the highest decrease in property crime is going to be those same areas: Vermont, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, down 46%, 45%, and 42%. So that's kind of where that shakes out. So the last part here, we talked about tier 1 cities, greater than 1 million population. Violent crime has increased in those tier 1 cities by 494%. Property crimes have gone up 134.8%. The most violent city of all the 1 million or larger populations is Houston, and the lowest is San Diego. So Houston has 1.1% of the population is victim of violent crime, where San Diego is 0.04. Most property crime, congratulations, it's Houston. 4% of the population is victim of property crimes. And the lowest is who you were dogging on just a little bit ago, New York City, the lowest property crime.
I don't know if I buy that. I think there's some fake news going on coming out of that state.
I don't know. Maybe. You can't trust de Blasio or anybody over there. So.
No.
Yeah, some of these, I was just shaking my head as well. So tier 2 cities, 300. We said that this is the one where the highest amount of crime happens is the tier 2 cities, which is 300,000 and 1 million population. The most violent city in that size is Detroit. 2% of the population is a victim of violent crime. The lowest in that category is Virginia Beach, Virginia. The highest property crime is Memphis, and with 6.4% of the population is a victim of property crime. And the lowest, and this one is another one that surprised the heck out of me, El Paso, Texas. And right across the border is Juarez, but I guess they're not stealing stuff in Juarez. They're just shooting and killing people. So, anyway. So tier 3 city, which is 100,000 to 300,000, most violent city in that category, Birmingham, Alabama. The lowest is Irvine, California. Across the country, Irvine is like the lowest violent crime city across the country is Irvine, California.
That's surprising.
So Irvine's nice. I've stayed there quite a bit. It's pretty nice. So that's cool. Most property crime is Spokane, Washington. And the lowest is Lakewood Township, New Jersey, which, I expected everybody to know. Everybody should have known that one.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like all these destinations that you've mentioned across the country are destinations for people to travel to. I mean, there's multiple destinations in this country that are nice for vacationing, but it doesn't seem like you're safe anywhere, to be honest.
Right. So it opens up your eyes is that the places that you think is going to be a lot of crime, turns out that it might actually be the best place to, it's safer than you would anticipate. Now I'm going to get into some things here because to your point, Rich, is sometimes the numbers can be misleading. And just because you got a good number here doesn't mean the right number is good.
And just because there is a good number, it doesn't mean you can't be that victim when you're in one of those places that appear to have low numbers of crime, no matter what the category.
Yep, exactly. So here are the top, let's see, where we're going here. The top 10 states with the highest murder rates. And this was through 2021. So what do you think is the top 10 state with the highest murder rate?
We talking state or city to clarify?
State.
I'm going to go Nevada, number 1.
Okay.
Arizona, number 2. And maybe New Orleans, number 3.
Okay. All right. Number 1, 31 consecutive years as the number 1 highest murder rate state. 31 years in a row from 1989 to 2019, Louisiana.
Wow.
And it's actually gone up in, it was went from 11.7 to 12.4. Number 2 is Missouri, 9.8%.
Wow.
Nevada, number 3. So good job. You got Nevada in there. I tell when people come here, I tell them, there is more stuff happening here when they're talking about Chicago. Yeah. But you think all the glitz and glamour down there on the strip, but it's high crime. For sure.
It's a very transient population.
Yep.
No one feels ownership or pride in anything. It's a come and go type community.
Yep. Yep. Number 4 is Maryland. Number 5 is Arkansas. Number 6 is Alaska. Number 7 is Alabama. Number 8 is Mississippi. Number 9, home of Chicago, is Illinois. And number 10 is South Carolina.
Wow.
So there you go. How about the top 10 states with firearms deaths? So give me a couple of your guesses that you'd put on that list.
I'll go, and I hate to pick on the same people, but again, it's whatever information I absorb, I have to go by that because that's the only knowledge I have. I'm going to go Chicago, California, Florida.
Okay. None of those are on the list.
Okay. Well,
So
again.
it's all, here we go. Firearm death rate is number 1 in Alaska,
Wow.
Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Montana, Missouri, New Mexico, and Arkansas.
Well, why do we not hear about any of this on the news?
Exactly.
Because those states you've mentioned, I think I heard anywhere in recent times, one of those mentioned in nightly news. Right,
which would be Missouri, which is with where whatchamacallit was. What's the one that they just happened with the big riots that happened over there?
Yeah. I'm going to blank.
Somebody's going to have to correct me. Yeah, drawing a blank. But yeah, Missouri's in there. But the rest of them I would have never guessed.
Nope.
So here I wanted to give some of because property crime is where you're far more likely to be a victim of crime, I wanted to share the top 10 stats for property crime. So here we go. And this is through 2021. Less than 30% of stolen property is recovered.
I'd have to agree with that.
It's
a low percentage.
Yeah, of the $14.5 billion that was stolen worth of property, only $4 billion was recovered. 59.1% for cars. So that's pretty interesting. Only 1/3 of property crimes are actually reported.
I would tend to agree with that. It's a low percentage. I couldn't tell you exactly, but I agree a low percentage because people think, they made off with my lawnmower and no one's going to find it. I'm not even going to waste my time.
Exactly. Right. Yep. I agree. 7.2 million property crimes were reported, or 2.2% of the population of the whole entire country. 2.2% of the population was a victim of a property crime. According to Gallup, again, 47% of Americans worry about crime a great deal, and 25% say not at all. So it says to me is that more than half of the people have very little concern about crime. So when we talk about the unfortunate part, I shouldn't say the unfortunate part, but the realities is that your objective is to make yourself less of an attractive target for criminals. So that means that your neighbor, your person across the street, someone else that's walking, staring down at a cell phone, not paying attention to their surroundings, those people are going to be victimized, not you. And it seems like more than half the population is ripe to be a victim of some sort of crime, just by those numbers. Larceny and theft accounts for 72.5% of all property crimes. So those are thefts, as we were talking earlier, that's nobody broke in, they just stole your stuff.
Yep, the smaller acts of crime.
And 27.3% of those comes from inside your vehicle. Property crimes are 8% higher during the summer than they are during the winter or spring. So
I'll attribute that to the youth not being managed by their parents and running amok late hours of the evening.
During the summer, yeah,
yes,
when people go on vacation and they're gone.
Correct, because I've noticed in the areas I've worked over the years, the crime rate in the summer does pick up for both those reasons. People on vacation, and especially nowadays with social media, they announce, "Hey, we're going to San Diego next week," and then that spreads like rapid fire amongst the younger generation in the communities. And I'm not just picking on teens or below, but it just spreads like wildfire.
Sure. Burglaries are at their lowest during the winter. They're down 10.5%. So, that's good news. And that's probably because people keep all their doors closed because it's cold out. So they close and lock their doors. 17% of property or money is stolen by members of the same household.
Wow, that's a pretty high percentage.
Isn't it? I was shocked by that. So you're 70% of the property or money that has been stolen was by a member of the household. So you're pretty likely to get stolen by somebody in your own house.
Don't let me find out.
Okay. And it probably goes to drug use, right? Is that people if they have a drug addiction or something, they're stealing people's property in order to pawn it or whatever to make money off of it on the street, right?
Yeah.
That'd be my guess. 46% of items of theft related items is with items with a value over $200. 31% is below $50.
Wow.
So that's pretty shocking to me, is that 31% of the crime of theft, it happens for under $50. So there you go.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. And finally, is property crime has decreased by more than 50% since 1993. And that's hard numbers. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. I hopefully that's helpful to some folks that are looking at it and saying, hey, what should I do? Where do I need to fortify, my personal defense plan? Is it here? Is it there? And the realities is that, it's going to be your car. It's going to be your hotel room. It's going to be your home, your garage, your storage shed. It's going to be you being aware, not leaving stuff just sitting around for easy access in your driveway. That's really where you're more likely to be victimized than it is, getting in a full on gun battle, down at the mini mall. It's far more likely to be just property crime.
Absolutely. Yeah. People have to think that, if they just prepare, not live in code white, and, not be paranoid, not be hypersensitive or worried, I should say, but take those steps to protect yourself, protect your property. And it doesn't cost much money to protect yourself or your property. It just takes action, dedication, and pay attention to what you need to do.
Yeah, be vigilant. You're the most important part of keeping yourself safe. So you just have to be vigilant in how you do it. So I wanted to move from that to our second topic of discussion, which had to be with law enforcement trends and how things are changing and how that's going to influence people in their personal defense. So I kind of went through and thought of 4 or 5 areas that I think, based on what I have heard, conversations that I have had, stories that I've seen over the last few years about where policing is going to go and how that's going to impact. And some of the things that are here, I think, my push would be it's important to understand where it's likely policing is going to go, because it's going to be city councils, county commissioners, those type of people are all going to be driving the new use of force, the policies of the agency, and those are the people that you vote for, and that those people that get on some sort of a radical agenda and how they're going to change it. The president can do a lot of stuff, and you don't feel that in your hometown. But the city council and the county commissioners, they do something, and you're going to feel it every day that you're walking around your town. So you need to be aware of what these people are pushing in your local PDs and offices, sheriff's offices, to make sure that you're being engaged. So with that said, Rich, here's a couple of things. Here's the first one that I kind of came up with, and we talked about this one before, which is the recruiting and retention challenges. So, one of the interesting things that I have seen is that, and you mentioned it in the last time we talked, is that a lot of these across the country have forecasted a major academy graduation reductions, and that's nationwide.
Correct. Well, I know locally here in the area where I'm at, all the agencies are having an extremely tough time recruiting individuals for the academy. Back in the day when you were filling classes with 30 people with ease, and having to put some on hold for the next class, again, getting 5 recruits in a class is extremely tough. So they're combining academies here. Agencies are, just so they can have a full academy and get people through.
Right. And I think that on top of that, what that leads into is that these agencies are going to have to, like I talked about at the beginning of the show, is that, they're going to have to come up with these force multipliers because they're going to have less people on the street, not in the street, less people on the street. So they have to find ways to be able to do more with less. And that's going to really turn into, leveraging technology to be able to do that, because
absolutely, they're going to need to take advantage of the technology, and as we know, each day it's changing leaps and bounds. But I know our agency has taken advantage of some technology, and we have, I think, within that I can recall, at least 3 different drone programs or divisions that use drones.
Right. And I was going to get into that. I figured that you'd probably have some stuff to talk about with that for sure. The other one was, we talked about is that the communities want to have the best and brightest. And so what's going to end up happening is that with retirements and people doing early retirements and leaving, it's going to open up this new style, this new leadership. And, I liken it to the AOCs of the world. They like the fact that it's this new, it's not, some old person making the rules. It's some new, progressive thought process, and trying to implement that into law enforcement. And, I just think how things were done in the past is not how it's going to be done going in the future with the new leaders that are going to be coming out.
Oh, no, there are definitely going to be changes. within the immediate near future and within the next 5-10 years of the way we know things now with policing.
Yeah. And it's going to definitely go to, I was reading some stuff on people are going to get more into, they do it in business. They're going to do it in law enforcement, and that's going to get into the analytics of it. They're going to be analyzing everything, looking for trends. It's going to be data. They're going to be just drilling down into data to determine. It's going to be like Moneyball. If you saw the movie with Moneyball, and they're going to be looking statistically it's almost, what was that show where they come out and that movie where they came out and arrested people before they committed a crime? Because they said,
I don't recall.
Was that Minority Report? Maybe. I don't know, but that was like some futuristic thing. I always think it was with Tom Cruise or something like that. But that was what they did. They came out and they said, "Oh, you're more likely to commit a crime. So to prevent it from happening, we're going to arrest you preemptively before you even commit the crime. Because we just know statistically it says you're going to do it." And so I think it's not going to be to that extreme, but I think that's kind of, they're going to rely on those numbers and reports to tell them where the trends are, where crime's happening, to be able to go there and focus their time and energy there.
Well, that sure shoots the phrase probable cause in the foot.
Doesn't it? What I mean,
it's like, well, we think, so we're going to arrest you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was one of the things that I was thinking of as well. Because the other thing is that with fewer people on the street, the other thing is going to have to be knowing what you're getting into when you're going there. And so you're talking about drones. I think that video cameras, far more, there's going to be a Skynet, if you will. There's going to be a net of all these cameras everywhere, and they're going to be able to have public and private kind of working together as far as that video surveillance. And you're not going to be able to walk anywhere without being on a camera. And from afar, an agency would be able, this would help the dispatchers, right? So they take a call, they'd be able to drill in from camera angles to the area where the incident is happening and be able to determine what is happening live as it's happening, to be able to determine what resources to deploy to that particular situation. And then you would have geo trackers on individuals to be able to tell where they are and who's the closest, and then it would tell you what kind of skill sets they have to determine who to send. I mean, it seems sci-fi, but that's going to happen.
Hey, we thought Star Trek was pretty corny with the flip phones there, and then we had flip phones.
Well, yeah, but they have the automatic vehicle locators.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you have them in the patrol cars now.
They do, and also the fire departments have that, and that's how they determine the closest unit for calls. Everything's up there on the board, and it automatically dispatches the signal it picks up on the closest unit.
Right, and so they're going to leverage that. And the next step from that is body camera. You have body cameras, you have dash cameras in the cars, and those automatic vehicle locators are going to tell you who's in it. And that's going to tell you who those, whether that person is a narcotics detection person, is, those types. So you would be able to deploy the right resource to the right situation.
Correct. And just think of the aspect of officer safety. If dispatchers have an eyes on from a camera somewhere, be it one that's floating in the sky or on a pole someplace, the information that they can give to that officer prior to his arrival, or if they have a screen, just send it right to their mobile data computer, and they themselves can see what's going on before their arrival.
Now, have you guys got any of the real-time crime centers set up, which are like those? They're like a portable command center that has the cameras, the lights, all the sensors and everything on it, and they can put it in a neighborhood so they can monitor the neighborhood?
For us, not that I'm aware of. For the other surrounding agencies, I know there's been things that I've observed that appear to be what you're describing. So I could say some of the cities might have it, but we ourselves in our agency do not have anything that I'm aware of.
So those are like a I don't know if you've ever seen them we have them in the parking lot here in Walmart and stuff, where they've just got the solar panels on them. And
correct.
But these are like on steroids. I mean, they're way more sophisticated, and they're mobile, and they can put them in within a day's notice into an area to monitor crime that's happening somewhere, to where now from afar you're monitoring it. It's a presence. It deters crime, but it also gives you a picture of what's happening there before you get there, so you can monitor that. So I would think that, to me, technology is where it's at. All these things are going to be. I just think that's is that unit costs $150,000. That's one-time outlay of money, and maybe it costs you, $1,000, or maybe it costs you $2,000 a year to maintain it. You can put that out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's a lot of money saved, instead of having cops out on the street patrolling.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen private enterprises use those when they're constructing large scale complexes, and you see those types of things set up within the grounds there. That way they're not hiring security guards, but they have a unit there that can observe the whole thing, cameras on it, lights on it, and so forth.
So where do you see the things that I see are going to be real sticky things, but are going to be necessary, is going to be the video surveillance. And so I know drones are getting more, acceptable, and people have less of a heartburn about, drones and cameras and looking in my backyard and stuff, because they're everywhere. So I think that the acceptance of drones is probably pretty high with the public, but video surveillance, where there's cameras everywhere, and everywhere you're at, somebody's looking and watching. What do you see? Is that a direction like they do in London, where the bobbies only have batons and no guns? I mean, is that how the direction the United States and law enforcement's going?
Well, they're going to go in the direction of technology here, but I don't think you'll ever see us without firearms, be it the law enforcement or the private sector. But I see the technology growing each day, and the acceptance of it. At the beginning, when drones were first introduced, it was extremely hard to get judges to buy off on using a drone for this or using a drone for that. But again, since that, I'll say battle started 5 years ago, and I don't know the exact time frame, but again, we use drones for 3 different divisions with our agency, and even before the SWAT team will hit a suspect's residence or business, they have a drone go up, fly the area, check it out, and see what movements is occurring before they go in there, just as another added precaution of safety. Because obviously those guys are already prepared, we'll say, from yesterday for the unknown. Now they just have a little bit of heads up of where the movement is, or if there is any movement. But I foresee technology advancing, daily, and law enforcement agencies using more of it.
I can remember sitting in those briefings, early in the morning ahead of going in one of those raids, and everything's drawn on a dry erase board with, the green or blue marker and a couple of pictures taped up onto the board. And I can only imagine having a drone circling around going, okay, here's the street, here's the backyard, here's where this is what it looks like right this second, 2 miles away.
Orientate themselves right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge help to that. And I think back to when, in Dallas, where they had those, I guess if you want to call it civil unrest or what have you, when they put that robot up into the parking garage. And
yep, I was just thinking that.
Yeah, I mean, that technology, that was 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. So, there's some agencies that are kind of cutting edge that are taking advantage of that stuff. And I think it'll make its way out into the small. To me, the way I look at it is that you're talking about the judges and getting to be able to use the drones and the criteria to do all that. And to me, it's the policy and the procedure and the approvals to use the technology moves way slower than the advances in technology. So, so it's like, you're 5 years behind already on the technology because it's taking you that long just to even get it approved. So I think the smaller agencies would probably benefit from everybody that's, getting punched in the nose trying to lead the way with the new tech out there.
Well, it's sometimes tough to get those that have been sitting on the bench for 10, 20, 30, 40 years to understand the technology that's out there now and the needed use of it. They're so stuck back in the time that I think that was a lot of the hurdle to jump at the beginning of the introduction of all the drones and stuff.
Sure.
But I'm not sure if you're aware, but if I haven't done much research on it, but I think they're working on robotic dogs for canine units right now.
I have seen some videos on that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of interesting tech that comes from the military, and I know that they're finding, some ways to deploy that in law enforcement from a lot of those robots that, run into those dangerous situations with, hostages and that kind of thing. So, hopefully some of that stuff helps out. But I'm going to make you give me a prediction. And I'm curious to see, I know your answer is not going to be Arizona for this particular question, but I'm curious if you were to predict the first city in America, I'd like to know when you think it will be and what the city will be that none of the police officers are armed.
I'm going to go with Massachusetts, 10 years.
So are you saying Boston?
That area there.
You think so? 10 years in Boston.
Yeah.
Interesting. I asked that question and I was like, I got to ask it because I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, about the time that I think I've got it dialed in and where it's going to be, I'm like, there's just no way in hell that they would do that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a big city. I don't know if it's going to be one of those 300,000 to 1 million size cities, or if it's going to be a 100,000 population place.
Well, you're asking me, and I was taking a guess of where I think it might start. I'll recant a little bit of that, but honestly, I don't think in America we'll ever go backwards to a degree where our law enforcement are not armed, that our citizens are not armed. I know there's a push by the liberal left to destroy a lot of the country and the Second Amendment, but I think there's a lot of strength on the other side that will prevent so much from happening and that have much more intelligent of a thought process than to allow something like that to happen.
I wish I could agree with you. I think there's going to be some city that's, thinks that they're virtue signaling the world about how great they are and how progressive they are. And they're going to pass something like that. I mean, there's crazy things that happens. I honestly think that it's going to be in the Pacific Northwest. I think it's going to be Washington. It's going to be, if it's not in Seattle, if it's not Portland, something like that is what I'm thinking.
Well, then I will say shame on that officer that sells his soul and stays with that agency, because I can tell you if my agency were to tell me that we're going to remove all firearms January 1st, I would not be with them. I would probably bide my time and retire at the last moment, but I would not be with them. I can't see an officer, and majority of officers are on the same thought process. So I can't see an officer staying with an agency and them telling him he's going to be unarmed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would last very long. I think somebody's going to test the water with both feet, and then they're going to just get lit up. And I just don't think, they're going to have a mass exodus of officers.
Oh yeah, they're going to regret it.
Yeah. And then it's going to have to backpedal. I think, but I truly think that in the next 5 years, somebody's going to try it. I think that that's the direction it's going to go. And I would say is that if the next presidential election, if it goes, continues to go the direction that it's going, I would say that it's definitely within the next 5 years, and within that next administration, if it is, if it's our current president and his friend there, what's her name? If the vice president, whatever. Yeah, if it's that same administration or a piece of it that goes into the next, I think that next administration, and during that period of time, that's when you'll see it happen. That's my guess.
I hope people stand up, because I can tell you my thought is the future of this country is going to depend on the midterm elections. If it goes the way it should, and we want it to, and not to be political, but the Republican majority takes over the country, I think we'll do good. But if we sink the ship any more than what it is, I think the next 20 years is going to be extremely rough in this country. And I don't know how people can settle for what's happening now and what's happened since January 6th, and nothing to do with the capital portion, but just the date of the changeover. I don't know how people are okay with that, and they think that's going to be okay for the next 10 and 20 years, the stuff that's happening now.
Yeah, I guess it gets into that is about what it is. What's that? I don't want to say the flashpoint, but that's the only thing I can think of is what's going to be that moment in time that sets everybody into a different path to try to do things a different way and not go down, continue where that wake up moment for the people that have just, been asleep for the last 10 years. I don't know what type of situation is going to have to happen in order for that to change, for everybody to change course. But anyways, I appreciate it. Is there anything else that I didn't mention that we didn't talk about as far as where you see law enforcement going and the things that the new technology and the new trends of where that you see in the next 5 years that law enforcement's going to be doing we would have never thought they were doing 10 years ago?
Well, I definitely, and one thing comes to mind I'll get to in a moment. I definitely believe technology is going to play an extreme role in public safety, law enforcement in the future. As you know, you've seen on the medical side, we'll start there first, drones delivering AED, the automatic defibrillators. They do that across the waters there over in Europe and stuff, Switzerland. But here locally, the technology, we have LPRs, license plate readers, coming in and out of states to see who's detected intersections. It's a streaming LPR, not only a speed camera. You have one city, here within our jurisdiction locally that, they have a system set up that runs, plates, almost like you're in the patrol car running the plate, and it detects a warrant or a stolen vehicle. It automatically sends a text messages to the officers that are on the system, on the text system, so they get an automatic text, and then they can start heading over to that area because they know where the LPR just read that at. So that's one of the technologies that no one's ever thought of. That is playing a vital role right now in present time. But the future, you have, I don't know if you've ever looked it up, but Dubai has, I want to say, hovercraft. It looks like a gigantic drone that an officer sits in, and about the size of a motorcycle, as far as the seating portion and stuff. And then there's the 4 propellers that come out, and it's like a giant drone, and they fly to the call like that. I challenge you to look that up.
Wow.
Or solicit you to look that up. It's really interesting.
Huh.
But then, of course, they have the monies over there to
Sure.
do that technology. But I think that'll eventually make its way here. And then with all the satellite stuff, we already have real-time satellite available. That's only to federal agencies. That's not to state and local agencies. But I foresee with MOU, Memo of Understanding, I can see maybe the state agency getting access to it, or the county sheriffs getting access to it. So then again, they can send up a drone and real time see it and get real feeds of what's going on.
Well, and I think that on top of that too is that I think the Wi-Fi, obviously with Elon Musk, and he's throwing up, I think it's called Starlink or something like that, I think is what it is. And they're
correct.
And those are the miniature satellites that are up, that they're putting, thousands of these satellites up there so no corner of the world is going to be without Wi-Fi. And so that connection to Wi-Fi is going to be the ability to share information between agencies. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be, the cloud is where it's at. They're going to store it all there. So, having stuff in computers and in files locally downtown, that's not going to happen anymore, to where, I can be from a far, far away in another city, another state, and I can look at your information without having to actually be there. And I think that stuff's going to start and obviously it creates some of the privacy and security of people's vital information that's going to be in the cloud. But I think that's where it's going to go. And then those geolocators, I mean, to me, I know it sounds crazy in science fiction, but I see a day in a very near future is that the dispatch center is going to have a bunch of cameras, a bunch of screens, and they're going to see and be able to monitor what every single officer that's out on the street is doing at that moment in time. And you're going to know exactly where they are. You're going to be able to communicate. I mean, I've even seen the stuff where they're trying to be able, that they're going to control. And I mean, this is, attempts is controlling the firearm. And for that particular call, they will not allow that firearm to fire because they can control it electronically. And then when it goes to a call where they feel that it may meet the threshold of needing to use it, then they will activate it only at that time.
Well, I don't know if that's a good thing. I think that should be an officer's decision. On the scene. I don't know if someone can make that judgment call from blocks away in a building.
Oh, but that's where technology goes. It's artificial intelligence is making the decision before those. And that's where I'm saying that's where the people need to be aware of what these agencies are thinking about doing. I mean, license plate readers is a fantastic technology. I don't understand how people bitch and moan about it. It's an invasion of privacy. Well, I can run your plates whenever I want and I can get the same information. It's just slow. So
if you have nothing to hide, what's the worry?
Yeah.
That'd be my thought.
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of running plates is to try to get the criminals off the street. And I mean, you're throwing a big net out there and I get it, but I don't know. I just think that, there's, for the good of your communities, you just need to kind of know what's going to be out there, because some of it definitely will help and some of it, questionable. Like I said, with the artificial intelligence deciding whether or not you should be able to fire your firearm I don't think we ever want to go down that route.
I'm sure we're all going to be in for a surprise in the next 5-10 years with the technology that we don't know that they're working on that will be out. For the good, but I think we're all going to be surprised how advanced it is, and if we just sit back and think of the benefit to society and to the country for the good, I don't know how you could really end up arguing with it.
Yep. Well, Rich, we have covered, again, a tremendous amount of territory. It's been a blast. I always enjoy getting your perspective on things and your information that you have. I would encourage, if anybody has any comments on any of the stuff that we talked about, make sure to throw it in the comments section of this podcast. Throw it in the comments section when we post it up on Facebook, or you can always send an email to podcast@laytonforest.com and give us your comments, questions, or anything like that, because we're happy to try to cover that. But I'd be interested to see how many people are surprised by the numbers that we shared, and if anybody was shocked by the numbers and is going to fly that BS flag and say, no way, that's not right. And just go to the website and go to the FBI report or go to the BJIS and look up that report and do the digging yourself and educate yourself and find out, because those numbers are the numbers, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you're coming from.
Well, Jay, thanks for the invite and put me at the top of the list, because I was surprised at some of those things myself. I need to do a little research and learning of where my travels take me. And I'm always alert and aware of my surroundings. And I hope the folks out there remain alert, aware of their surroundings, and be ready to act. But you have to, because it sounds like it's everywhere out there.
Absolutely. Well, Rich, again, thanks for joining us. And on that note, we will call this an episode, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Jay.
And that'll be a wrap for this episode of the Leighton Forest Prepared Defensive Action Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, or visit our website, www.leightonforest.com, so you can get all the latest info from Leighton Forest. If you have any comments or questions on this episode, or if you have a suggestion for a future show, you can reach us by shooting an email to podcasts@leightonforest.com. On behalf of Mike Garza and myself, thank you for joining us. Be safe, and as always, stay in the fight.
Peace out.